I've been working with everything here over the last several weeks, you know, with him being on vacation. I guess the key points I want you to take away from our perspective is, first of all, we continue to vent gas as hard as we can, and we're making progress. The recent data from how the ORWs are performing, the CPTs, the repeat CPTs we've done, and what the PMWs are telling is the gas cap continues to thin. The sinkhole, it continues to stabilize. We're seeing very little new growth. It seems to be very calm. And the seismicity is down real low, and it remains real low as it has been since January. And then the last key point is, you know, we did get the new south berm installed. It held very well during the recent rains and high water. The old south berm was over top, but we knew that would probably occur. That's why we put in the new south berm. I think at the end of the day, we had 3 or 4 foot of freeboard on the new south berm, even at the high point. So, all good. Let me give you a little bit, we've got several maps here, but I'll give you just a few points. You know, you've seen a lot of activity in the last several weeks. We did get the additional 5 PMW pressure monitoring wells installed. Completed them last week, and they're developed. I think they still have some instrumentation to be put in, but all the installation work is done. And those are going to be used, as the other ones, to monitor the pressures in the MRAA. Hopefully that'll be able to allow us to reduce the number of CPTs we need to do in the future, because we'll be able to monitor the pressures in the MRAA through them, rather than having to do a bunch of CPTs. We now have 9 PMW sets installed and 2 extra PMWs, that's BC2 and then 1 over on our site. You know, and then this map kind of shows where the PMWs are. I'm not going to go through the numbers, but you can see the containment berm. So we've got essentially 3 or 4 on that side, 1 here, and then we've got the other ones here. So we got the majority of the area ringed around it, and we're seeing, you know, we're watching the whole area through those PMWs. The data from the PMWs that we had installed before this recent 5 continue to show a reduction in the gas pressures associated with that gas cap. So again, that's part of what we say, what the data we're seeing that says the gas cap is thinning out. So that's one of the reasons for the PMWs.
Well, when you say a reduction, what are some of the numbers?
I think the differential pressure, the incremental pressure caused by the gas cap, I think this setup here, I think when we first put it in, we were seeing around 1.5 pounds, and it was down less than 1 pound, like 3/4 of a pound. And I want to say, I forget which other one that we had. This one was showing a reduction. This one, where we vented gas out, that where the relief well stopped venting gas, it confirmed that. It showed a decrease, and then it showed the pressure stay pretty constant at about 0.4 psig, which is what they say is about capillary or background. So that's the data we'll generate from all of them and continue to monitor those. From a gas depletion, observations about gas depletion, let me talk. This shows all the relief wells we have installed. Right now it seems like we've got 3 areas where we continue to vent gas. One is kind of off to the southeast and east of the facility. OGRW1 and ORW14 have pretty much depleted, but we're getting good gas flow out of 57, but we are dewatering it. It was kind of, the flows were trending off, but we started pumping a little bit of water out of it, and the gas flows have picked up. But that's one area. The other area is right up here north of the facility. We're getting some gas out of 48 and 54, but again, those 2 were dewatering also. We're having to pump a little bit of water out. And then the last area is right in here. And the trending on these, ORW55, the wellhead pressure seems to become trending downward. We're not getting great flows out here. These tend to be trending down. 36 is doing pretty good. We've replaced the choke on it to vent more gas, and it's flowing as much as any of them, but it's, over the last several days, the flow has come down on it also.
How much flow is it now?
I think it's, yesterday is around 24,000 cubic feet a day.
How much have you gotten up to?
Total?
No.
I think we got up to 27.
27, I think was the maximum.
That's after you opened up the
Yeah, we
choke.
replaced the choke and opened it up. So we're not dewatering any of these as we committed to you guys. So it's interesting. We've got five relief wells venting about 93% of the total, and those five are 57, 48, 54, 36, and 55.
Bruce, what is the pressure on 36?
It's the wellhead pressure is around 45 pounds, flowing wellhead pressure over there.
And do you have a pressure yet on the BMW?
No, we
on
just-
the 4As?
No, we don't have that yet. They got it developed. We're ready to put the instrumentation on it, and then it'll start recording data, and then after a period of time, we'll download the data.
I thought you would have had it. Just calling you to have a meeting.
I think we got a gauge on it. I think it showed around 45 or 46. I looked at that. Let me see if I got that. That is, shows 48 and 49, 48 pounds, which is just a little bit above what hydrostatic would be for that depth. So those are the key relief wells that are still venting. The recent, with the CPTs, when we put in the PMWs, the 5 new ones, we did a CPT at each location, and we did some follow-up CPTs in several locations. So you can see these are the 5 new PMW locations. In general, what we're seeing in areas where we are still venting gas, where we still have relief wells venting, when we look at that CPT versus the previous one, and they were kind of all done back late third quarter last year, July through September, we're seeing about a 50 to 50+% reduction in gas thickness for what we saw back then. For the relief wells like these that are, CPTs near relief wells where we're not venting any more gas, what we showed is there really wasn't any more gas there. So it confirmed what we're seeing on the wellhead. But the good news is, like the CPT up here by 36, I think showed right at a 50% reduction in what we saw the last time. We've got several, like this one showed more than a 50% reduction down around ORW55. So again, it's just continuing. It's all good news. It shows the gas cap is thinning. It's venting. It's just going to take time.
How much time are you talking about?
Well, I had an update with the owner, my owners, last week, and they asked me the same question. I said, my guess is that this could go to the end of the year, maybe before, based upon how much we've vented out and how much they're flowing right now. That's my best guess right now. I think these areas, because of the dewatering, down here are going to have to deplete a little bit quicker because they're flowing a little bit better. This will tend to slow down as those wells start to water in, which is what they do.
How does DNR feel about this interpretation of the gradual thinning of the gas cap? I'm not talking about the prediction of when it's going to be done, because frankly, I think you're sticking your neck out.
It's a guess. I mean, it's best guess.
But does DNR, is it in essential agreement that the gas cap is thin?
Overall, in certain areas that we can have repeat CPT data as well as other data that have been submitted to date, we do agree that in some areas, at some wells, I'm not going to say areas because we only have them at wells, we do agree that the gas thickness has been reduced. And obviously they've been venting gas, and we agree that yes, numerous gas has been removed, but I'm just going to leave it at that. At certain wells where we've seen the data, we've seen thickness reduced. I'm not going to go as far as to say in areas because we don't have that data yet.
How about 36?
At 36 specifically, yes, we've seen thickness reduced there.
Okay.
So what is the thickness now at 36?
Just a little under 2 feet, like 1.8 feet. I think when we measured first, it was like 3.6 feet.
And it's still dry.
Yeah, it's never produced any water so far.
Okay.
What about at CPT 128? How thick y'all think the gas is there?
Got that data. I figured Dennis or Bob would ask that question. CPT, which one? 128?
128.
It has about just a little over 3 feet, according to
3 feet.
That's the 4 amp,
Yeah,
CPT.
So it's not zero, but it's less than what it was last time we monitored.
Okay.
So,
Does DNR also, are they in agreement that the CPT technique, which of course was developed for a different purpose, but that it is a useful tool for interpreting what this gas cap thickness is?
It is part of a multi-tiered system that we're looking into as a data point.
Okay. Now I understand that DNR is also convinced of the merit of PMWs, but the CPT is part of the picture, I guess.
We definitely take that into consideration, and that any data produced, yes, goes into the overall calculation of determining if certain areas are getting moved.
And from the power standpoint, we're gonna look at all of those technologies to make decisions.
So I mean, it's, the bottom line is we're gonna continue to vent gas till it doesn't vent anymore.
The answer to Nick's question of less than a year, about the end of the year, that's, you're saying to get all this gas out?
I think the last place it'll be venting is below Sportsman's Paradise, based upon what we're seeing. We had thicker gas there than we did at any other locations we found, and it's been pretty strong right now, but just, a rough estimate is, we've got 6+ months left. So based upon how we've thinned stuff since we put these in, it's gonna tend to slow down, and that's the wild card. You just don't know how fast the wells are gonna water in.
So y'all pretty much really decided that there's no recharge into it now, and I read the,
We don't see any
updates and stuff.
indication of it. I mean, we had, this CPT down here is a good one. We've done 3 CPTs in this area and haven't found any gas. And all of the other wells that have, that we've vented, that have vented gas and then watered in and showed the wellhead pressure drop. We continue to monitor there, and we haven't seen any rebuild pressure. They basically bent it down, and if there was recharge, we would expect some of them would show an increase in shut-in wellhead pressure, and they're not.
Well, that's great news.
That's the data. That's what we're seeing. We, based upon meetings with CBI and DNR, part of our process is, as we move these wells through different phases, the question is, when do we plug and abandon? And so we'll be building cases in several locations, like up here where I know we've had discussion where we say we've monitored for the period of time when we've got, no wellhead pressure, and we've done CPTs, and the PMW show it's gone. So we're gonna be recommended areas to be considered for plugging and abandonment activity. And DNR and OEP will have a chance to review that and comment on it, and then we'll go from there. We don't wanna be too quick to plug a well. We wanna give there plenty of time to see if any wellhead pressure shows back up.
So how many have you plugged and abandoned?
We plugged these 3
And
because,
Pad Creek.
I'm sorry?
And Pad Creek.
And Pad Creek. So those 4 are the only ones that we've plugged so far. All because of settlement of that and because of, settlement on the Pad Creek. We just didn't want to have a well that was open. I've already talked about the new South Berm. We were putting plans together to actually install a cut-through on the old South Berm, since we got the new one completed, so that we could let the water inside and outside equalize. And I think last week it went over the top and cut through itself. So I think our plan at this point in time, we're probably gonna put barricades over here and over here so we don't see any traffic down there, and let Mother Nature do its thing. And that way we don't put any equipment out there.
Where did it cut through at?
Neil, do you remember where exactly it cuts through? It was one, it was, think about where that
This
was.
is a MRA, thing about center between there and.
Yeah.
That's where it subsided the first.
Yeah, it's where we saw the settlement,
The lowest point is where it's broken.
yeah.
What we refer to as, survey pin number 12.
Well,
That's where which is about the middle of the berm.
So when you're saying cut through, you mean, first y'all said over top, now you're saying cut through, so it
Well,
breached, I mean, it
yeah, it
broke,
went over the top and it actually cut some.
and it made a pathway
Made a
that's on
path.
through the
We're
berm.
just gonna barricade it and let it do its thing.
Just
and
tell me
berm
this, the only
doesn't-
thing about that, I mean, I know the outer berm was just additional protection, but by allowing all that water and stuff to freely go past the old south berm, it's letting everything get closer, you know, letting all that water get closer to like Corne now, versus trying to hold it back.
When we continue to see water only flow in.
Right.
I mean,
It's always higher on the outside.
it has always started outside the berm. Since we completed the berm early last year, we've seen water, we've only let water in. We've never discharged any water. So the water flow is from the berms into the center of the sinkhole.
And where are they going?
It's going probably down into the MRA aquifer. There used to be about 100 foot of clay above it, and now, because of the sinkhole, it's exposed.
So the overtop and the cut through this time was just because of all the rain, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So this time it did go from sinkhole to out?
No, it went from the intermediate area, it went from this area into this area.
It was
So the
about 6
space
inches
between
higher.
the two berms, it went back in?
We did not have any culverts in this area. We were working to just get this in. Our inlet culverts were over here, I think. So we didn't equalize it. We wanted, we wanted to make sure that we kept that intact and didn't do anything out there. We finished this berm and we're getting ready. I think our recommendation was to put a cut through about here so that we could equalize it and let normal water go where it's gonna go because we've got the berm completed.
You have a culvert on the berm?
Yeah, we have them out here and I think we've got a couple over
You
here.
have some kind of check valve to keep.
We got a manual valve that we monitor and close off.
Each transfer location has 2 pipes.
2 pipes,
So they can move some significant
2 here and
water.
2 there.
So the water's steadily coming from outside the berm into the
When
berm?
we open the valves and allow it.
Okay.
So at this point in time, that's about all we have planned on the berms. We have plans in hand or submitted to DNR associated with the 10th Amendment to install some passive vent wells at the larger bubble sites. We're waiting on comments back from DNR, so we haven't taken action on that. I think we're talking 5 or 6 shallow passive vent wells to try to help those bubble sites vent off quicker, easier.
Bubble sites have slowed down a lot.
We think they have.
They have.
I rode to the pipeline, and I couldn't believe the difference from last time I was out there. I mean,
We
less than
continue
10,
to
A third of what they were at one time.
Right there, the pipeline crossing, yes, ran by it, 1, 2, and 3, and Trish Canal now.
They hadn't slowed down. Wait, you get pressure has dropped on these, CP 138, 136, 137. I missed the first part, I'm sure you covered that already.
I'm sorry, what now?
On the CPT
The pressure
130,
dropped
about
about
100.
36, but we're venting pretty hard from it. The CPT showed about a 50% reduction in the thickness of gas from what it did when we first did the CPT.
Okay, even though you don't have any pressure drop, it's still showing a reduction.
We're seeing, when we first put in 36, I want to say the wellhead pressure was probably in the neighborhood of about 50 when it first started venting.
So you had like, what, 12 foot it was? 12 foot, yeah.
I don't think it was ever
think it
that
was that
high.
much.
It was less
The
than
first-
10.
the
So right
first-
now you got like 4 foot?
We have about, at 36, this one, originally it was 3.6 feet, and now we're showing about 1.8 feet.
And the pressure should correspondingly drop.
And originally, I think, if my memory serves right, we were around 50 pounds, and we're showing about 45 pounds now. The numbers add up. We did just get some comments back from DNR on the response that we put in for the Third Amendment, the air monitoring program, and we're going through those, and we'll be giving, our responses to their comments. property standpoint, we continue to look for ways to reduce our overall costs, and look at how to get rid of this command trailer and help the parish move the emergency response vehicles, clean this out. We are looking at the potential of the Sanchez property, but that's, that's somewhere down the road, but just to keep that on the table, because it's, there's fewer people here right now, and we're just trying to figure out how to shrink our footprint as we get closer and closer to the point we want to be. We are looking at a couple of houses north of Highway 70 of having some Tetra Tech workers that are going to be here longer term, live in, just to make it easier for them.
They're already there.
I don't think we've
They're
done.
not already
Where's
there.
Mike Taylor over there?
Now, Mike was living in a house up there, but Mike's primarily up in Memphis now. He's pretty much on call, but not coming down right to entertain. So anyway, our plans for the next 90 days. We're going to continue to vent gas and monitor through the PMWs. I won't be surprised if we do some additional repeat CPTs. We wanted to do this first group to just get some data on that. We think we'll be putting in some passive vent wells, shallow, out in the swamp, out near the bayou, near the largest bubble sites, to see if we can help them vent off faster. It'll also allow us, if we're successful, it'll allow us to monitor pressures and sample that gas, which it's pretty difficult now. Part of that plan is also on some of the bubble sites to actually put a collection cap and allow it and vent it over to the side of the bayou. Some of those that are in the bayou, the smaller bubble sites, to actually monitor pressure and flows and be able to take samples. So that's probably the biggest part of the work that's left, is that response to the 10th Amendment. I talked about confirming CPTs and then putting a plan together for possible P&A activity on relief wells that have depleted. That's what our plans are going forward. Questions?
Of course, my first concern is Sportsman's Paradise. That's the most immediate concern to me. The CPT on the 4A property, 128, y'all said they showed about 3 feet of gas there? Okay, a few months back, didn't they do a CPT further back on that lot, on the 4A property?
Yeah, we did, but I don't remember that data.
I don't remember the data.
I want to say, in this area, I thought we were seeing around about 6 to 8 feet of gas in the middle.
I don't know. I don't recall that in that area.
If I recall, the 4A property, the CPT to the back of the lot had very little. At the back of the lot, because that was one of the discussions of the locations of a well there. And when they did the CPT in the back of the lot, there was very little shown there.
And that was part of the reason why we wanted to put the new CPT in that BMW further west, because we didn't show any gas 6 months ago.
Now, if there's 3 feet of gas there on the 4A property at 128, and anybody can answer this question, I just wonder if the circle of influence of, say, well 36, I mean, I'm wondering, is well 36 gonna get rid of that gas? Anybody wanna speculate on that?
From our standpoint, the Tetra Tech guys, the radius of influence, when they mapped out this one, 49, 50, and 36, it basically covers all of Sportsman's Paradise.
That's what I understood.
And when we look at the other wells that we spaced out on the same spacing, they vented gas well, they had good gas venting rates while they still had gas there, but then they depleted. The general theory is that because we've never seen, after they've depleted, we've never seen wellhead pressure return on any of the wells, just by virtue of how gas wants to sit above water. If we had, if we weren't reaching out between the two wells and covering the whole area, if we shut in a well that has depleted, we're most likely going to see a wellhead pressure return.
And let me just respond to that. From what I understand from some of the scientists in the discussion, without dewatering operations, the radius of influence might be very limited, and the pressure monitoring wells that they will put in will hope to help prove that and to determine if they need additional wells to be put in along Sportsman's Drive.
What John says is correct, but I also recognize we've got wells in here that we've never dewatered that depleted, and we've never seen a recharge or wellhead pressure return. I think dewatering helps the rate at which and it does let it reach out further.
Also makes the land sink.
We didn't see that on the testing here, and I don't know that we're seeing it in any other testing. And the experts say they don't think it will, but because of the concern, we're not gonna do it in the community.
They were checking elevations down South Corne today. You all get any of those results?
Now, I knew that they're doing it, they're doing the quarterly survey, we'll see that in a week or so, once they get all the data. They were supposed to finish up last week, but the rain held them up.
You said 128 did not have gas in it several months ago?
No, I think,
we
I
did
think
it.
it's,
Yeah.
Maybe I missed 97.
97,
97.
they didn't do
We
previous
did, we
one.
did a 128 right behind the old 4A property. 97 was up near the canal.
That's the
97
one that didn't have none.
didn't show any
And then
gas.
you put 128 in and it shows it.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, we also, you know, we put 1/3 ORW 58 in here and it really didn't show much gas. So it looks like there's a high point ridge right in here.
I asked this to John a while back. Now that you're getting the situation kind of under control right here, and that's what your main focus, are y'all gonna go out and see if you got problems further toward where it's a bunch of few holes? Why you got the CPT rig here, just to check, see if there's any gas that way? And then
Well, we
really,
went out this way and didn't find it.
but you got a plan right there, where that's coming from.
No, I mean, the flare is what these wells along here are feeding that
Okay, so
flare.
you
But we
didn't see
did do
any-
CPTs further west and didn't see anything, and we did CPTs up here that didn't see anything.
Okay, and then anything further east?
We went over to this property.
If I remember, you used to have some, I believe that you had pressure, if I remember what Peacock said, that y'all had some, at the beginning, y'all had some over in Grand Bayou by,
We actually put in 2 relief wells over here that never did vent gas, and that's where we started the CPT testing never showed any gas. We did testing on the Crosstex property and really didn't show anything.
Mike,
you're satisfied?
Mike, that's the GeoProbe you're referring to that had pressure on it.
Are you satisfied that they don't have any?
No.
Are you satisfied that when they're going to look in? That's what counts.
The discussion that is currently happening with the comments to the 10th Amendment, and we are going to discuss more about that, about the delineation and how far the gas is going to be out. So it's going to be under discussion.
Okay.
So the answer is no, I'm not satisfied yet, but we are going to discuss.
Okay.
I know in the meeting in April with Gary Peacock, he asked the question, well, why don't you P&A the wells over here, because we've never seen any gas. I'm sure we'll have more discussion about it.
On the east side, I think they can make some steps to prove that. On the west side is my biggest concern.
The top of the MRA aquifer, as it goes east, goes deeper. So the gas, when the gas was released, it tended to go this way.
Does it keep going deeper over here? Or
It actually goes back deeper, and that we didn't see any gas over here, and we didn't see any gas up here.
Switching gears about the sinkhole, what's the latest on the current depth of the sinkhole?
I think it was at the last survey, it was around 200 feet.
262
depth.
Sunday.
What was it?
262.
John said our measurement's 200 feet.
Well, y'all did mid-April, and we were only a foot apart, so
We
mid-April.
were, I'll give it to him.
They were 206, I was 205, but it's been dropping about 8 feet a week. And as of Sunday, it was 262. Sunday before was 259. And I do them every Sunday. So this past Sunday, 262.
We'll see what the next survey shows.
Yeah, and when you do it, you're doing just a manual drop with a weight?
Yes.
And the Miller engineers, what do?
They do both. They do the weight as well, and that's when we were a foot apart in mid-April. But their main tool is the fat thermometer. They just map it with that.
y'all do it in the same location?
I do it in the same location each time.
But they may have a different location?
The last April, yes, he did it. According to his GPS, he was in the same spot. In general,
So y'all
25 feet or
y'all
so.
equal in April with,
I visually line mine up. I don't use GPS. I visually line it up with a couple of spots in the sinkhole and drop it in the same spot each time. And I usually can find it.
see, it's that we've had, bubbling, right down there at the main pipeline crossing for 2 years now. And somehow we have managed to, avoid anybody getting gas in their house. I've heard various, speculation as to what might happen in the future. But I've never heard anyone come up with a theory for why the gas hasn't gotten into any of our houses. If there's so much gas, and it's the threat that it appears to be, why hasn't that happened? There's a lot of houses.
The threat is there. The conditions have to be in place for that to happen, and the advantage of living where you live is because of the clay that's existing, and it would have to find a pathway through that clay. But nevertheless, if it would find one, the risk and the threat is still there.
Is this akin to the risk that I could walk outside and get struck by a bolt of lightning, or a section of satellite could fall on me?
In open atmosphere, and notice with the bubble sites, open atmosphere, you're not going to get an LEF. It dissipates too quickly. The fear, and that's why the risk is there, is an enclosed space. Enclosed space with not a lot of traffic, not a lot of ventilation, could have a risk of accumulation and reaching the LEF. Open atmosphere, it would take a lot of gas to get to.
You think it's okay if I live in my house?
I'm not saying that.
There again, well,
wait a minute.
but there again.
Wait a minute. Let's clarify what the question I was asking. You don't object if I decide to live in my house?
No, and the mandatory evacuation, if you read the definition, the risk is there. And you take the risk upon yourself by staying there.
So you don't object if I decide to stay in my house?
At any time the risk does become present, then you read the definition for forced evacuation, and that would probably occur. Mandatory evacuation, the risk is there, but it has not been present to go to the forced definition. So that's where we at now, but it continues to be the same, mandatory evacuation.
Well, I've never understood why y'all don't require these monitors to be in every single house then, instead of just letting people pick and choose who wants to have them. If there's that much of a risk, explain that to me.
The monitors are for those that would like to have that presence. There has not been any known accumulation. And if that would happen, then those orders would change. But as they stand now, the risk is present. We're not doubting that the risk is there because of the well performances, the geoprobes, having pressure, all of that exists. And there's gas at the shallow geoprobe wells, and that's present. But it has not accumulated anywhere where to force everything to happen. So
Then I'll repeat my question, why are you not requiring monitors to be in every house? What's the point of me having one if my next door neighbor's not going to? Because if they blow up, they're going to blow me up.
you need to understand that we're on the mandatory evacuation is for you to evaluate all of that and whether you want to be there or not.
I guess in her response too is, I'm agreeing with her, the DNR they approached it as everything's an abundance of caution. Well, this ought to be an abundance of caution also.
And again, it's
John's not
under the
DNR.
definition of mandatory evacuation.
John's not DNR.
No, I mean, but they are here, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Everything else is abundance, not to John, but to DNR. The vent wells, the CPT, everything that's being done is abundance of caution. Well, the monitors ought to be also.
And that's another reason why another thing that we have to evaluate when you decide to stay here. If you decide, if your neighbor doesn't have a monitor, and you're afraid it's gonna blow up, then that's something you have to take into consideration.
That's correct.
For
It
yourself.
shouldn't matter if nobody's staying, there's still workers here, there's still postal workers coming in and out, delivery people, trash people, everybody, you know, the public is still coming in and out here, whether we're living here or not, you know, and any one of those could be right there when something would happen. I just understand why it's not required, the monitors in every house for total public safety, if it's that much of a threat.
Those individuals that are wanting those monitors can get them placed. In evaluating the risk around you, you have to take all of those things into consideration. As far as the other traveling public, there's the outdoor air monitoring going on again to see if there's any signs of changes in risk with that. The risk is present, but not presenting itself to make any changes to those areas.
In all of the indoor monitoring, we've not seen any positive hits of LEL or H2S. In all of the area monitoring, we've not seen any elevated levels of concern.
So if we're worried about gas being trapped to trigger the LEL, then is it that the location of the monitors in the wrong place? Within the houses?
No, I will say, and it's my understanding, I don't go in any houses, so I don't know. It's my understanding through their contractor that the LEL monitor should be up because gas rises. H2S is heavier than the air, should be on the floor. I'm assuming that they did that on all the houses because they indicated that they were making changes and putting the LEL monitors up, but I don't know because I don't go in the house.
They do it in my
But
house.
going back, should they be in a closet, or should they be under a cabinet, or should they be out in the open area?
I think that all areas would be great, wherever you have a penetration through the slab would be great, but again, this is in general, you want to get where the residents are is where you want the monitors to protect them.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, so if you've got a slab in the garage and you got a crack, then should you have a monitor there?
I would say that would
So
provide an
what
additional.
I'm getting at is, do we actually have enough monitors, or do we have a token number of monitors to say that?
They had provided a basis, a square footage to on how many monitors they were going to place in any home. If any of that would change and we would start seeing some levels of anything, I think that may change those standards that are in place now. But
There are two things we ought to acknowledge about the gases that we're talking about. Gas that we're talking about are H2S, which hugs the ground. The other gas that we're talking about is methane, which does exactly the opposite and spreads very, very rapidly. As long as I have an LEL monitor, which is looking for the methane, and it's, you know, up above my head, and it's in an area that I am in, it's extremely unlikely. And mind you, these things are not set to go off at the level where an explosion could occur. They are set to go off at a level that's 10% of the level at which the explosion could occur. So it's extremely unlikely, if nothing has occurred, that there's been any methane that has gotten into my house. If you were to have natural gas in your house, you'd probably get more leakage from an occasional flame out on the kitchen stove than you would from what we have measured. Now the other one is H2S. And the thing to remember about the H2S, this thing is set to go off at an incredibly low level. I don't remember the numbers like I do for the LEL, but it's set to go off at a very low level. I personally worked in an area that looked at sulfur recovery in a major refinery in this area. And I can attest to the fact that the kind of levels that we're at, that we're talking about, there's no chance that you'd be able to stand the odor. Unless you were a very, very unique person that just couldn't smell H2S. But there are very, very few of those people.
See, I'm one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that's true with H2S, once you get above, I think it's 38 parts per million, then you would lose the sense of smell.
Sure, that's right. That's right.
But that's what the monitor's for.
That's right. But the monitor would go off.
Yeah, I think the monitors are set to go off before odor threshold.
I think it's 5. I thought they lowered it to 5. I know the default on them is 10 feet low when you take it out the box, but I thought they changed it to 5.
All I can tell you, since your sniffer apparently doesn't work on H2S, the rest of us have not experienced H2S, either through our sniffer, or, you know, our nose, or through the actual monitor. And maybe that can, now I admit my house is not your house. And, you know, 80 other people's house is not your house.
Say, I had
But
a
it's
geologist come.
unlikely.
I had a geologist come out with an instrument and got a hit on H2S just across the road from me.
Well, I can attest to the fact that I've smelled H2S in the swamp, just from decaying vegetation. So if it's across the road from you, knowing from where you live, that could be what it is.
And then it could be something else.
Yeah.
But more likely it's swamp gas,
So it's not what.
being in the swamp, that is.
In all the sampling we've done, the only elevated H2S we've seen is 2 locations on our facility. One was the original well that we drilled deep into the near Cap Rock, and we vented off gas. It quickly came to water, and it came very strong with H2S, and we've since then plugged that.
Well, you're also sitting on a big layer of calcium sulfate,
Right, in the
which
Cap Rock.
makes H2S.
And that's why we think we found that. The other one, the other place we saw H2S was when we were bringing crude oil and gas out of OG3A. And we had gas busters and monitors over there in a flare because we did see some elevated H2S, but that's expected when you bring out sour crude.
Now, didn't you get a hit on H2S at the, where Scott Hood is, where the birdhouse, and when they drilled into the slab? I think there was
I think
H2S.
we may have seen a very low level of H2S, but I don't think it was elevated.
And then there was, I think you had a hit on H2S, the log cabin on Sauce Pecan.
The under slab, yes. And if I
Under
recall,
slab.
they, between 7 to 15 parts per million in general. I don't remember exactly which one.
And I'm pretty sure that was one where we sampled the gas, and the gas came back almost microbial, which is from vegetative decay, which was one would expect. You'll tend to see both of those in that situation. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna try to stay here or not. But I would really like to know if the elevation of our,
In a semi-annual subsidence report, when we looked at all of the areas, we did not see any subsidence outside normal subsidence across the whole region associated with South Louisiana. We didn't see any localized settlement or subsidence across the area, other than right around the sinkhole.
inside the containment berm?
Right around the sinkhole, yeah. This area, I mean, there's no dirt there, and then there's a subsidence bowl around it. That's where we saw, from survey to survey with the satellite data. But outside Highway 70 in this area, we didn't see any subsidence that our consultants considered excess of normal regional subsidence that's occurring everywhere in South Louisiana.
Okay. I'd also like to know what y'all plans are with the
said before, we have no desire to be a homeowner. We're not gonna rent or sell this, houses to anybody else. So, we're trying to get a complete count of how many houses we're gonna have, but then the plans are to demolish them or turn them over to a demolition company so they can move them out and demolish all. Our goal is to take it back to green grass.
Really?
When do you think that will happen?
It'll probably, I hope to have it start late this year. But that's the best case because it's dependent on the insurance carriers. And our insurance carriers haven't exactly worked with us on a lot of things.
So is it Texas Brine's property, or is it the insurance company's property?
It's Texas Brine's property. As held by Bayou Corne Holdings, an affiliate of Texas Brine.
So you're saying it's the insurance company's decision though whether to demolish or not?
No, it's to be quite blunt, it's our decision. The insurance company is basically putting the requirements, doesn't want anybody to live in the house anymore. I mean, once we bought it, we don't want to have another claim against it. The challenge is, we have spent a lot of money on this that we haven't been reimbursed by our insurance company. So before I go spend a bunch more, I'd like to have their commitment that they're gonna reimburse me for this.
For demolishing them?
For demolition. That's why I paid insurance premiums.
And then if they don't, you gonna leave them there and go derelict, or you gonna rent them out?
No, we're not gonna rent them out, I can assure you that. We'll eventually get them demolished.
But, I mean, if your insurance sure doesn't allow you to demolish them, or doesn't reimburse you, then they're out of the question. But now, you don't give a damn whether they, if somebody comes in and then sues you 40 years from now, because you're insured that, you don't care about.
Well, I care about it.
No, I mean, you don't care about what the insurer thinks though, because he's not backing you up.
I'm not sure what your question is.
I don't know what it is either.
Okay.
Yeah, lost us all, Nick, there.
That's my point. If they're giving you a demand, but they're not backing that up with their insurance to back you up, then they no longer.
They haven't given us demands.
They're saying.
We said we want to demolish them.
Yeah,
They haven't said yes or no.
okay, but if they don't give you the money for it, then they shouldn't
that's
have the
a no.
right, they shouldn't have the right to tell you that you can't do what you want with it.
That's true. Once I decide I'm gonna demolish the properties, I'm gonna demolish the properties.
Right.
My bigger challenge is I'm looking for reimbursements of the policy that I paid for.
So, okay, I agree with, that sounds like a good point. If they do not reimburse you, will you demolish the property still?
I still intend to do that. How fast will determine by how much money Texas Brine has to spend on any given year. That's the hard fact, reality of what I face as a company. We paid a lot of money for insurance, and the challenge is, as you guys have probably experienced yourself, if you pay money for insurance, and when you have a claim, you gotta do everything you can to get the insurance company to pay that claim.
So you can't get this man an answer, a definitive answer.
My plan is to demolish. I can't give him a time frame. As soon as possible is my desire. That I can say, but I can't say when.
But he doesn't have to worry about y'all renting them out.
No, we're not gonna rent them.
You're not gonna sell.
I'm not gonna sell the property. If I sell the house, it'll be moved off the property.
Probably.
Yeah, it'll be
Alright.
moved.
Get that in.
But the intent is no one will reside on that property.
Got that on the record?
Is that gonna be something just forever, like
You can trust him.
20 years from now? I mean, if all this is over with and done?
Someone after me in Texas Brine will have to decide that. But as far as I've been told and what I've passed on, there's no intent of anybody residing on those properties.
So there's no chance community can be built back up again because of that
Probably not.
years from now?
Once the settlements have occurred, there's no ironclad statement that prevents someone from having another claim.
Yeah, there's people on the other side of Highway 70 that don't wanna leave, but also don't wanna be back there, the only house within 3 blocks, you know? It seems like you could at least work something out with those people to take some of these vacant houses rather than tear them down. You know, it's people that still wanna stay, have some kind of chance of doing it, not being isolated back there, you know, not tearing the house down.
I think the concern would be just the opposite. You wouldn't wanna have people, you wouldn't want them to be renting out properties,
I'm not talking about renting, I'm
Cheap.
talking about people just swapping. I mean,
oh,
if they're gonna be here anyway, but it's back there by themselves versus, you know.
Judge Zaney was very specific about the class. What we were able to do, what we're able to talk to, and with the class settlement agreement in place, there's not much option to do anything until that's been completed. And we're under direction by Judge Zaney to follow those rules.
Well, we may wanna opt out of the lawsuit, class action lawsuit. If we would, if I would know what y'all intentions are for the rest of the properties. I really don't wanna stay where I'm at. I love my place, but I don't wanna live there. I don't know how to say it, if y'all gonna be selling it cheap to get some of y'all money. If y'all would sell it for 25% of what y'all paid for it, just to recoup some of y'all money. That's not a
There's no
possibility.
intention, as I sit here in the discussion I've had with both owners and my boss, there's no intention for us to resell the property or recover costs.
What would happen if someone decided to stay over there and you decide to turn it green? Is it, you just gonna let it grow up, or is there gonna be some maintenance to the properties?
I haven't made it that far. I'm sorry, I mean,
It's subdivided property and they would fall under subdivision rules. It's not like pasture property, it's a subdivision. So if they buy in subdivision property, they have to follow the parish's subdivision rules.
and we believe it or not, we do have a code over there.
But that's covenants restriction, but the parish has a grass cutting ordinance, 12 inches.
Yeah.
They get notice, and if they don't respond, parish sends a contractor out, cuts the grass, and sends them the bill. If they don't pay the bill, we lien the property. There is a process for that in the subdivision.
But right now, it's not enforced
Well,
because of the
mandatory evacuation, and
Okay.
we're talking, this is not
Okay.
under mandatory
Okay.
evacuation because there's issues with that. But if we're talking long-term, in the subdivision, it's still a subdivision.
One more question for me, to you, John. Why, because of what you just said, how we can't enforce some of these things, cutting grass and stuff, why aren't these properties on the highway here being cut by the parish, since the owners don't have to do it because of the evacuation? Texas Brine can't go on the properties to cut it, so why didn't the parish take care of these properties up on the highway here?
Because those people are on a mandatory evacuation, they still own the property. You would have to come down to me to make that request. And as
Okay.
long as we're in this area, like I said before, it's a gray area. I am not enforcing the grass cutting if they wish not to cut their grass. If they don't feel safe coming back here.
Not them, I'm asking why isn't the parish doing it then? I understand that they don't want
still
to.
have to pay for it.
I'm sorry?
The owner of the resident would still have to pay for the grass cutting if the contractor would come out and cut it. The parish don't pick up the bill for it.
It should.
No,
I mean, it should, under these circumstances, and you recoup your money for that, just like you recoup it for everything else.
We're not being reimbursed fully now. So,
Put it on the list.
we're not being reimbursed fully now, and we're trying to spend more money. We're just like Texas Brine. We have a lawsuit filed against Texas Brine. We are gonna seek reimbursement from them. And so, until that happens, we're not looking for any additional expenses.
Okay.
any other questions? I think I heard a stomach growling somewhere.
Thank you, see you all later.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.